Welcome to Module 2, Part 2B. In this section, we'll be searching the research literature. So the objectives will be that you'll be able to identify and access different sources of evidence and perform effective literature searches using electronic databases. Finding the evidence, where do we start? Think back to the 5 steps of evidence-based practice. We have framed a patient scenario into a clinical question, and now we're going to systematically retrieve the best evidence available to us. Finding the evidence must be quick and simple, and that came out in the discussion board in week 1 because of the time constraints that busy clinicians face, both related to the searching and also to appraising the literature. And that the findings in our discussion board were very similar to that reported in the literature. However, it's not always the quickest route that gives us the best evidence, but we need to keep in mind that we can be efficient and look at the hierarchy of evidence, focusing on the lower two, the studies and the synthesis. The busy practitioner may not have time to read all of the articles on a given topic, especially when there's a lot written on it. And that's when systematic reviews, which rigorously search for and evaluate the literature, should be considered. So the 5 S's, these are the different types of electronic databases. There's clinical decision support systems, usually electronic, and you might tend to find some of these decision support systems in hospitals. There's summaries of evidence-based guidelines and clinical practice guidelines, and there's articles and abstracts that have been pre-screened and critically appraised. And I don't find that there's a lot of those that are useful in physiotherapy, but one example is the Australian Journal of Physiotherapy. More to our profession and type of practice are synthesis or systematic reviews. And there are several databases that are important for us to know about, such as the Cochrane database, Medline, Pedro, and we'll go through some of these. Let's start with the Cochrane Library. It's available through the University of Toronto while you're taking this course, and I think to the end of December. It has several databases which you can explore, including a database of systematic reviews undertaken by the Cochrane Collaboration. And that's an international network of individuals who prepare and disseminate extensive, rigorous reviews, and they're updated as new studies are published. And many times the people who are doing these reviews are experts in their field, either methodologically or clinically or both. They're usually done by committees. And the Cochrane ones are dependable in that rigorous methodology was used. So you can conduct one of these searches by putting keywords, and this is kind of quick and dirty, but in the right here in the abstract, right at the top in the blue section. For example, you could put ice adults and ankle sprain if we're thinking about a question that has pico components. It doesn't have a comparison, but a lot of times we don't in physiotherapy. And we'll go back to the Cochrane. When we look at studies, we can find original articles, and U of T has one of the most extensive online library collections in the world. You won't have any trouble finding a journal that you're looking for. They have large electronic databases such as Medline, CINAHL, and several others that are useful for physiotherapy. So again, when you're thinking about your literature search, you need to think about, first of all, the question that you're asking. And that's how you know where to start. You look at the higher levels of evidence in the pyramid because this evidence has been, as I said, aggregated, synthesized, and already appraised for you. So that would be the systematic review. And you can do something as simple when you start, especially if you're really busy. as putting in that term systematic review to try to limit the number of articles that you get when you do your search. So once you have your question in a PICO format, you're going to choose some key search terms, and then you're going to broaden the search if needed. We'll go through this, and then you're going to use terms to either expand or limit the number of articles you're finding. You need to choose the best search engine. You can decide if the question is treatment, diagnosis, or prognosis, and then look at the right database for that type of question. PubMed, Pedro, Cochrane Library are good for all of those, even though we have it beside diagnostic, intervention, and prognosis, etiology. You really can't go wrong with PubMed. So the large electronic search engines. Initially, I would search using Medline, Embase, Cinol. PsycInfo was when we had OTs, so I don't think you'll find that as useful. But the initial search really is those largest databases. Then you would check the key references. Say you have a paper already, you could look up some of the references and reviews. Sometimes if you find one article, depending on what database you're on, it will say that it is cited by, or here are related articles, and that can help you as well find something that you're interested in. So you can also use the search terms or the keywords that some of these articles used. So it's almost like a snowball approach. One thing leads to another. When you think about the databases, it's good to know that this is how they are in scope. So obviously Medline is the largest database. Embase is large as well. There's a lot of overlap, as you can see in the center of the circles. And then there's a Cochrane Trials Registry, which is smallest. But as I said, a lot of the work has been done for you. When we think about Medline, which I said is the largest electronic database for biomedical literature, it's produced by the U.S. National Library of Medicine. It's widely available on several different search engine platforms, such as Ovid, which you can find at the University of Toronto Library, or PubMed, which you can find as a search engine on any website. It contains mostly US and UK journals. There are some Canadian. They have to be high level to get into the Medline and PubMed databases, and have to meet certain criteria. And for example, Physiotherapy Canada has not yet made it to the database. And so there is a website there that you can follow to see to go right to PubMed. So start your browser on something like Internet Explorer and put in pubmed.gov. And whenever you want to use and or, which we'll be doing later on, they need to be in capitals. So you can search PubMed using subject or keyword headings from a title or abstract. It could be like ice and ankle sprain, hip fracture and fall. So this would be called free text searching. But PubMed and Medline aren't like Google. They don't find variations of word. For example, you need to use exact words. So for example, if you Googled something, you could use child or children. But Medline uses specific medical subject headings or mesh terms, the ME for medical, S for subject, and H for headings. And these mesh terms, which you could also think of as keywords, but they're a little bit different, they're put into the Medline database by experts in library services. And they're an indexing system similar to what you would find at the back of a book, or almost like a table of contents where you might have a heading and then many subheadings. Typically, each new article that they receive that's published will be assigned 10 to 20 mesh headings. And that can be based on new, if it's a new topic totally, but mostly existing. And this is the most precise and accurate way to search. So this says avoid starting here, and that is where you would just put in key words or search terms that are familiar to you. However, and so it says not to do that, and the main caution would be because you need to use the exact term to get this to work. It says always start here and use the mesh terms. I would say you could consider both, especially if you're in a hurry, and I'm sort of cognizant of that based on what I was reading on your discussion boards. So the mesh terms, as I said, the Medline subject headings, are assigned to each article to represent the key aspects of the study. And the good thing about them is they provide a consistent way to retrieve articles. Very systematic vocabulary organized into what you could think of as a tree structure, um, or chapter headings in a textbook with a lot of subheadings underneath. For example, the major subheading would be the biggest leg, then down to knee, then down to cruciate ligament. So each article is tagged by librarians using the approved mesh terms. And you can see the mesh terms on this website. So some tips. Explode. If you're not getting a lot of articles, it will find more. So it actually kind of brings it up another level, say from a subcategory to a larger level, so you'll get more articles if you are not finding enough. Because maybe you haven't selected the right mesh term. So I find most of the time, though, I need to restrict or focus so that I can get more specific about the articles that are being called up for me. So again, Mesh has controlled vocabulary, and you may need to look at their Mesh terms. For example, back pain. If we look at that, we can see that there's categories where back pain actually has very many categories that you could choose from. It could be etiology, it could be pathology, or it could be treatment effectiveness. So these are all, the flash of a screen, and you've got lots of terms to select. Um, PubMed helps you choose your terms, and um, you may need to combine certain words together so that you can narrow this down. So, and you would do that using and or, not this term. I don't usually use that. So, for example, if we were looking at manual therapy and exercise, and we wanted both of them contained in the same article, either in the we could look just using Google, and we could put those terms in, and we may not get any articles. If we did, they would typically be at the top, and you can tell by their HTTP that they're actually PDFs of articles from journals, and sometimes you can see the journal. But say we're actually doing this the correct way, and we're doing it in PubMed, or we're doing it through Ovid on the U of T library. If you put and in, look at how you will narrow your search down to something much more manageable and probably get more precisely what you're looking for. However, if you use what are called a Boolean operator like or, then you will get all of these articles, everything in blue, manual therapy and exercise. And you would find that the exercise could be totally unrelated to manual therapy or anything you're interested in. Could be exercise for seniors and gym programs. So the general structure is to have a population, and you can use or, and, the intervention, the comparator, and the outcome. So this might be child or children, the intervention. So as you can see, you can choose a couple of different terms and manual therapy. So this, say for the intervention. There are some wildcards you can use, and which help your search. So for example, if you want all the terminology related to malignancy, malignant tumors, but you don't want anything related to malunion, there you can add a star after the word like malig. So These are available, and you can find which words are wildcards and how to use them. There are quite a few good free online PubMed tutorials. We've also posted 2 U of T library resources on the website this week, but there's no shortage of, of tutorials that you can use to help your search. And I think, you're not going to be doing in your practice major searches on a regular basis. But when you're teaching, you might want to bring yourself up to date on certain topics. Um, and then you would go through this more extensive search. I'm not going to go through, I'm going to let you go through the example with the patients with cervicogenic headaches, looking at manual therapy exercise with an outcome of headache frequency. And these are some of the terminologies you could use, the mesh headings, and to do your search. It helps in the PICO question to underline the key terms, and when you're putting the words in, use them in order of importance because it's going to search for that first. Okay, I'm going to leave that. And these are some slides on the PubMed clinical queries that you can use, and then the search terms and what you'll see. And when you do get your articles showing, you'll see that you'll have the clinical study categories, and you'll also have systematic reviews. And as we said, try to go to the systematic reviews initially, at least to see if it looks like there's one that's well done. And most of the time, especially if you ask for it, you can ask just for journals that have an abstract, that are written in English, that are published over the last 10 years. And that's helpful in narrowing it down to get to the article you're looking for. Some articles will have full text, but they won't all. But the good thing while you're taking this course, and please take full advantage of it, is that even if you don't get full text when you do your search, you can take the library journal name and say it's New England Journal of Medicine. Go to the U of T library site, click on journals, type in New England Journal of Medicine, and then go to the issue you're looking for, and you'll have full access to PDFs and full text articles. And as I was saying earlier, you can see that you can get related citations in PubMed, and that can be really helpful. Sometimes you find the best ones on the side. As I said, you can limit your search using English, or maybe you want human subjects, years of publication, and as I said before, you can use the type of article. Maybe for the critical appraisal, if you're looking for a randomized control trial, you can put that in. And those are the limits. Okay, so there's other databases similar to Medline, and there is quite a bit of overlap, but they do have more European journals, although often they're non-English. I find CINAHL very helpful in physiotherapy. It's allied health literature, and it contains journals and articles that maybe didn't quite make it to Medline, but are available this way. OPA, CPA have some great websites, especially OPA. I'm sorry I didn't get to BC or Saskatchewan, I think someone's from. But you can have a look at your own college association websites. But the good thing is that Pedro's freely available. It's been developed to give rapid access to bibliographic details and abstracts of RCTs, systematic reviews, clinical practice guidelines, specifically for physiotherapy. And these are all free to members of the OPA. And very easy to access on their website. Most trials have also been rated for quality, which helps because you can discriminate between trials that are likely to be more valid and interpretable for you. So it's a great free resource because you can see both the level and strength of the evidence. The electronic health library, if I got that on there. Oh, just be aware that, oh, there it is. An electronic health library, and that is through the Allied Health Professional Development Fund, which you can also use if you want to pay for this course. Um, the, the fund has a multi-year subscription, and it's available again to all practicing members of an allied health profession. So although it's on the OPA website, it's actually paid for through different dollars, but this will give you access. And there's also Ortho Evident, which CPA has partnered with, so people in other provinces would get that as well. And CPA also had members have access to Physiopedia Plus, which has ebooks, videos, evidence updates, and PubMed is free as well. Don't you will get some full text, which are called open access articles, um, but it's really great if you get the articles you're interested in right now while you have the library subscription to U of T Library. And I really like this feature both of Google Scholar and PubMed. If I find an article I really like, I can ask an email alert using the author's name or keywords. And this is a great way to, I find it jogs my memory and makes me think, oh yeah, I should keep up to date with that. And although mostly you'll be interested in clinical manual therapy trials, I think as educators and instructors, you may also find a value looking at educational research in terms of best practices from a pedagogy or teaching perspective. So that's everything. It really there's lots of good videos that are a lot better than trying to go through it online, but it just takes some practice. And I see somebody's already posted a very good research question and their search strategy and their connection to their practice online. I think it was Laura. So good luck this week, and I'll see you at the next session.